Hey guys, yet another video here on YouTube. So I was supposed to post this video on February the 28th since in Taiwan it is a Memorial Day based on the tragedious event happened during the timeline the game返校detention was set in. So I thought it would be appropriate. But things get a little bit out of hand, so as I noticed, it's already the end of March now. I'm sorry about that. But today, not only have I come with 3 DIY ideas, I also want to share with you a little bit about my perspective as I am a Taiwanese myself. I'd like to share some cultural details in the game that I think it's interesting enough to share, a bit historical background that I learned in high school, and a story that actually happened in my family which I heard from my father. But if you are only here for the DIY, then I totally understand. Personally, I also think history is a bit boring to sit through. But anyway, I'll leave a time down below for those of you who want to skip to the DIY parts. So first, here's a bit information about the storyline. As you probably already know, the name of the game 返校detention. 返校 actually means going back to school, referring to Wei Zhongting going back to school after he was out of prison. The basic storyline, what was actually going on in the game, is that the main character, Fang Ruixing, was under huge pressure dealing with a broken family. Plus, the political state at that time limited her dream to be free with her thoughts. That's when she wrote all her dark thoughts on a paper airplane, which was later on found by her teacher, Zhang Minghui. Then, as you all know, they fall in love. The teacher gave her the deer necklace and then turned his back against her, so as to protect her. The other thing happened at the same time is the book club held by the 2 teachers, Zhang Minghui and Yin Cuihua. They gathered students around and let them read the forbidden books. Fang Ruixing then overheard the conversation between the 2 teachers talking about being on the same boat as they are in the book club, but misunderstood that Zhang Minghui broke up with her for another teacher. At the time, she thought Miss Ying was the only teacher in the book club, and so as to revenge, she asked Wei Zhongting, who probably had a crush on her, for the book list from their club, turned them all into instructor by, hoping to get rid of Miss Ying. Out of her plan, not only was Miss Ying safely out of the country, Mr. Zhang was killed instead, and Wei Zhongting was in prison for 15 years. Out of guilt, Fang Ruixing committed suicide. And as in Buddhism, if people kill themselves, their souls will be stuck in this world, repeating the suicidal motion over and over. That's why the player is playing as Fang Ruixing's Linger, repeating the things she did. And if you ever get to the good ending, her soul is finally out of the guilt and set free. Here comes the cultural part. There are definitely a lot of cultural references in the game that only a true Taiwanese could understand. So as I was watching some foreigner YouTubers playing the game, a lot of time they don't even know how they were supposed to react to some specific tasks and why they were doing what they were doing. So now I'm gonna give explanation to some parts of the game and hopefully will help making sense in the game and help you understand our culture a bit more. First thing first, one thing I have to clarify is that I heard a lot of YouTubers introducing this game as a Chinese-based game as its language, and yes, it is written in Mandarin in general, but as I later on noticed, the game actually used a significant amount of Taiwanese, which reflect the fact that in Taiwan, the majority of people, especially the elders, speaks like half Chinese, half Taiwanese. My parents also do that a lot. Unfortunately, there's no written language for Taiwanese. That's why the Mandarin form for Taiwanese was later on developed. The next thing I want to share with you guys is the moon blocks. These are the 2 wooden blocks that we throw in front of the shrine. In Taiwanese, we call it buabui. Both blocks have 2 sides, a flat side and a round side. It is a method to communicate with the god or our ancestors when we want to make some important decisions. The game probably gives you some explanation itself, but to make it more clear, first you take the 2 blocks in your hand, bow to the god sincerely, then say your name, date of birth, and your address. Then ask your question. Afterwards, throw the 2 blocks on the ground. An angry answer or crying answer shows when both blocks shows the round side. It is a no answer. The divine answer is shown when one of the blocks shows its flat side while the other shows the round side. This means a positive answer towards your question. If both blocks shows the flat sides, it's a laughing answer. It could either mean that the answer should be obvious, you should have already known the answer deep down in your heart, or that there's no answer to such question. Next, let's talk about 黑白无常. In Taiwan, we also call them 七爷 and 八爷. It is believed that when a person died, they come and collect the spirits and guide the person to the afterworld. Legend has it that the two guardians used to work together. One day, a convict they were escorting to another location escaped during the journey. They decided to split up and search for the escaped convict and meet again later under the bridge at a certain time. However, one of them, called Xie Biyan, was delayed due to a heavy rain, so he did not reach the bridge in time. She Wuzhou, who was on time, waited under the bridge. The heavy rain caused flooding in the area under the bridge. She Wuzhou refused to leave because he wanted to keep his promise to his colleague, and eventually drowned, which is why the skin of the black guardian is black. When Xie Biyan arrived, he was saddened to see that She Wuzhou had drowned. So he committed suicide by hanging himself, which is why the white guardian has his long tongue sticking out. The Jade Emperor was deeply impressed by their actions, so he appointed them as the guardians of the underworld. Another fun fact, remember the song you have to play on the piano in the game? Well, it was once being used in a goat milk commercial, and the parody song went viral. Students around my age have all probably heard of the song.
要整齐，要健康，请有人来照顾我。快快洗手，快快成长，样样得意真厉害。
To be honest, that is how I first learned the melody before even knowing the original song. Funny enough, if you look at the comment section, quite a few Taiwanese have commented that the game返校 detention brought them here, back to the memory. And you know I'm not joking. The timeline is set when Taiwan is undergoing the martial law, in which I assume is probably the White Horror period, since that could be considered the most intense state. At that time, one of the two parties fighting in China lost the dominance, so they came to Taiwan and hoped to fight back someday. Colonized by them, Taiwan back then was quite miserable. Especially after being colonized by Japan, the whole cultural concept and discipline is controversy to the new government. At the time, it is quite common that your family or friend disappears someday for no reason. You wouldn't even know whether they are still alive or not. I also asked my father about the time, and here's a story that happened in our family. One of my grandfather's brother disappeared someday without anyone noticing. A few decades later, after the martial law was withdrawn, he was finally sent back to our family but was already in his 70s. Turns out that he was in prison on the Green Island all alone. The first thing we're gonna make is this jewelry hanger. It's inspired by the creepy twisted hand in the cage. Obviously, you'll need a cage for this. It could be quite expensive to buy one, so in case you don't have any cages in hand, I have another video showing you how to make a cage out of wire sticks and cardboards. You can go ahead and check it out. I'll leave a link down below. Next, I also bought this hand model to represent the twisted hand. Simply twist the fingers into an unnatural shape and then stick it into the cage. To make it seem more realistic, use clay to cover up the base. Then paint the base with the blood color. I mixed the color red and black to achieve the look. Afterwards, dip some water on your brush and splash it onto the hand to make it seem like covered in blood. And it's done. The next thing I'm gonna show you is this white deer necklace in the game. I made this with translucent clay. When this kind of clay is dried, it becomes transparent, which is therefore perfect for textures like jade. First, cut part of the green crayon and a little bit yellow crayon into powder. Remember to make sure there's no tiny pieces inside. I didn't take care of it very well, that's why you can still see tiny crayon pieces on the surface. Remember to grind all of them into powder. Then take some translucent clay and mix in the color. Afterwards, simply shape the clay into the white deer necklace. Put it in the oven at 100 degrees Celsius and bake it for around half hour until it's completely set. Then it's done. Last but not least, the teeth necklace. We'll make this using translucent clay as well. First, take 3 equal sides of the clay and shape them one by one into teeth. It's easier to first stick a toothpick into the clay to create a hole for the necklace. Then continue shape the clay with the toothpick in. At last, move the toothpick back and forth a bit to loosen it from the clay. Put them in the oven. Use 100 degrees Celsius to bake until they're all dry. It took around 2 hours for me. To make it look more like the teeth color, we're gonna use the coffee paint. Simply apply coffee on your clay teeth and create several layers of the coffee paint. After you have the color you like, mix red along with some black paint to create the blood color. Use a sponge to carefully tap the color onto the base of the teeth. Next, use a toothpick or something like that to apply the dice number 6, 2, and 3 onto the teeth. In the end, I have to say that I'm really proud that Taiwan has developed this game to present our history and culture to the world. As you know, we are not quite like Japan with their anime and Korea with their K-pop songs and drama. We don't really have something that is internationally known by the world. I believe a lot of people have never even heard of Taiwan before. So I hope more and more games or other creations could be out there for the world to know more about us. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe to join me on my fangirl journey. And I'll see you guys in the next video.